Hello, everyone, and welcome to our continuing monthly professional webinar series. Today's webinar, 5 key considerations when upgrading to Deltek Costpoint 8. I want to welcome you to our session today. It will last about 30 minutes. Now let's go ahead and get started. Next slide, please. First, very quickly, I want to tell you a little bit about NeoSystems for those who aren't familiar with us. NeoSystems has been around since 2003, serving the government contracting community. We have 4 main lines of business. The first is our newest line of business, which is focused on managed security. And this is heavily focused on CMM security, compliance, supply chain readiness. Our second area is hosting. We have a FedRAMP ready FISMA moderate cloud listed in the FedRAMP marketplace. We meet all the NIST, ITAR, DFARS, and SOC 1, SOC 2 security regulations. Our third line of business is where we got our start 18 years ago, managed services. So full outsourced services around accounting, human capital management, and information technologies. And the fourth and final line of business is really what we're here today to talk about, our systems integration business. This is where we focused on implementations, upgrades, integrations, system reviews, across a set of purpose-built partnerships that we've built in the technology community. So again, we've been around since 2003, serving the government contractor community during that time. Next slide, please. Now I would like to introduce your host today and presenter, Susan Mitchell, the Vice President of Professional Services ERP Systems at NeoSystems. Susan?
Thank you, Don. Hello, everyone. I'm Susan Mitchell, and I am very excited to be here to talk to you today about Costpoint 8 and what you need to consider. So the first thing we're going to talk about is, where is your database located? So this is a consideration you want to take into account, because if it's hosted, in some cases, your upgrade path might be a little different than, between providers. So as an example, does your hosting provider determine when your upgrade will take place? So meaning, like, if you're in the Deltek cloud, clients are notified when they are scheduled to upgrade to Costpoint 8. So Deltek has a schedule that's out there for their hosting clients that, they're on, and that's essentially, you'll get notified when you're going to be upgraded to Costpoint 8. If NeoSystems is your hosting provider, then we coordinate with our clients and schedule the upgrades, with the hosting team to fit your timeline. So that's kind of how that works in our, cloud. If you're not in either one of those clouds and you have another, hosting provider, then you'll need to reach out and confirm the methodology that they're going to use for the Costpoint 8 upgrades. So again, will they schedule them? Like, will they have just a schedule, kind of a mass schedule for their clients, or will it be more tailored to the individual client needs? And then the other thing that I want to add is, if you are hosted in the Deltek cloud, how do you know when this will occur? So notifications from Deltek are posted on your Deltek portal page in the system maintenance section. An email notification is sent to the contact name on file for your company. I emphasize to pay close attention to this, because one of the reasons I wanted to do this webinar was because I've had quite a few clients or people that have emailed me, and they hadn't noticed that they were going to get upgraded, and they've emailed me, about a week before they're supposed to be upgraded, saying, Susan, what do I do? They're kind of freaking out a little bit. So I just want to let you know, pay attention, look for this email if you are in the Deltek clouds to know when you're going to be upgraded. If your database is on premise, there's kind of some different things that you need to take into account. So does the company have the technical resources internally needed to perform the upgrade? That's kind of your first question. So you might have somebody that's used to being able, you might have a database administrator that's used to being able to troubleshoot things and everything, but they're not necessarily comfortable, doing an upgrade or something like that. So if you don't have the resource internally, you can always reach out externally and just confirm and factor, the resource availability into your timeline. The other thing that you would want to, take into account is, depending on the version the company is upgrading from, should your company consider upgrading other applications besides Costpoint? So in some cases, if you weren't, say, on 7.11 and you were still back on, say, 7.01 or something earlier, because you've kind of not wanted to do your upgrades before, you might actually have some database platform things that you might have to upgrade. Or if you're on time and expense 9 still, you might need to upgrade to time and expense 10 before you can upgrade to Costpoint 8. So that's also another consideration. So the next thing that you want to consider when going to 8 is what is changing for you. So many people, when I talk to them and I say, just go look at the Deltek Costpoint 8 release notes, they're completely overwhelmed when they go in and they look at this document. I think it's 135 or 140 pages, and they're not really sure, where to even start. So what we're going to talk about a little bit now is how do you do that? So if you go and you pull up the Costpoint 8 release notes, which you can access from the Deltek knowledge base, the first thing you want to do is review the table of contents by module for the modules your company uses. So it can take this huge document that's 140 pages big and narrow down what you really want to focus in on. So that's kind of your first step that you want to do. If you don't use the module that the enhancement, is affecting, don't worry about it. So meaning if the enhancements for the contracts module, right there, you have a huge chunk of pages you don't even need to pay attention to. The second thing is, if you do use the module, expand the table of contents and see what it says, like what the highlighted area says is changing. So in some cases, the change might not even be applicable to you. So if it's adding GSA unique, entity identifiers, and you don't have anything that relates to that, then that specific item doesn't even affect you. So you don't even need to worry about it. And then if you're unsure if you use the functionality and you're a larger organization, get with the SMEs, go to the area leads within your company, go to your AP manager, go to your projects folks, go to your various parties and engage with them and find out if you use it or not. So in addition, so when you say, do you use the functionality? So if you say, yes, we do, then go to the part in the document that actually tells you what that change is doing. So it will actually describe to you what it's going to do. So then you can figure out if this is a big change for you or if this is just a nominal change. In addition, so in Costpoint 8, so if you were to look through kind of the upgrade guide and look at, many of the things that are changing and things like that, the bulk of them, if you look through it, are related to the contracts domain, the planning domain, the supplier portal, which kind of crosses materials a little bit and over, some of the AP vendor setup and AP areas, reports and analytics, and time and expense. So all of those are kind of have heavy changes that I've seen in in 8. The other kind of core areas, so your projects area, your general ledger, those types of things, they have a few changes, but they're not massive, changes to those areas. So will you need conversion support? So what I will tell you is generally no. So for core modules, the answer is most likely no, unless there is an additional field that has been added you want populated via an automated methodology. So what this means is using that example that we were just looking at about the GSA, ID, is if you wanted that, say that's something that you've been collecting offline or in a user-defined field for the vendor or something like that. And now that the field is there, you want to populate that. So you might, if it was a field that was very important to your organization and say you've been waiting for that to be there and it makes, it's going to change, a lot of things and simplify a lot of things for you, then you might want to bring in, you might want to have some data conversion support to help you, or, reach out to your internal team that does that and coordinate with them. The other option too is that you might want to just do it to the front door. So sometimes these additional fields will come along and you'll say, yes, we want to use this because we've been collecting this over, in another file or in another place that wasn't really meant for this. So you'll, set a path to figure out how to get that data in through the front of the application. So for other modules, so for modules used such as contracts, you have a decision to make. So in Costpoint 711, the contracts module currently has a manage opportunity screen. And you have the ability within the manage opportunity screen to track leads. So you could currently go in and enter leads in your manage opportunity screen and classify those as leads. In Costpoint 8, leads are actually now broken out into their own screen. So there's their own section, called manage leads. So if when you go to upgrade, you want to basically break the leads out from the manage opportunity screen and over into, put those actually over as leads and start tracking them over there, you might want to have some type of, scripting or conversion support to get that information over there. The key with that is it's not something that you would have to do. So you could still upgrade and be fine. It's just that if you wanted to start using that functionality, or you wanted to go back in history and have everything over, all of your leads over in that section, you would have to figure out how you were going to get that over there. The other option you could use is that in that specific example is if you didn't want to go back and move anything that you had tracked in opportunities over to leads, you could just do it going forward. So you could just essentially start using the functionality once you go to 8 and just know that you have your old leads that will eventually kind of die. Well, they may die out, but that will go away. So do you need to test? So what I will tell you is there are many considerations that go into this, and many companies kind of go back and forth between this. And I've heard a variety of different people have different opinions on what's the best approach and should they test or should they not. So the decision to functionally test depends on a variety of factors. So the modules used versus the enhancements for that area. So what we were talking about in the very first section of, here's the list of enhancements, does it affect you? If you go through that list of enhancements and you're like, well, there's maybe a few things that are directly affect me, then you might be just fine not testing and going right on up to 8. If you go through that document and there's a lot of things that are changing for you and you want to test to see how those are going to work and their effects on other things, then you would want to do a test round. The other thing you would want to take into account is effects of application changes on third-party interfaces or Costpoint extensibility. So the reason I just put this out there is that if you have third-party interfaces and you're going through the enhancements document and you realize that it's going to affect, some of this might affect your third-party interface, then you might want to test. That might lead you to want to have, do some testing on the Costpoint 8 upgrade. Another consideration are the control requirements. So is your company required to test patches and upgrades, for key financial systems as part of their Sarbanes-Oxley compliance procedures? So many companies have to be able to kind of show that they tested this key system, this financial system, since it drives everything. So that might be a consideration. And then the last one is your company's approach to risk. What is your risk tolerance? And I always point this out because I will go in and I'll be talking to some management teams and they'll be like, just rip the Band-Aid off and go. They just want to, go on up to 8. They're not concerned. They'll deal with whatever the fallout is. They're good. And then some are very risk averse and they're, they want to make sure they test. They want to make sure, that they've put it through its paces. So again, I kind of go back to it sometimes is dependent upon the company's risk tolerance. So the facts that I want to point out to this is that Costpoint 8 was released in September 2020. So we are in March. So it's been out about 6 months. The user interface was not changed between Costpoint 711 and Costpoint 8. So it has the same look and feel to your users. It's not, like from 701 to 711 where your users kind of had to get acclimate from the classic interface, to the new interface. And then although it's a full numbered upgrade, Deltek considers this part of their normal continuous release model. So it's minimal impacts, to your system is how it's viewed. So when should you upgrade if you have the choice? So we already talked a little bit about how your hosting provider might, play a part in deciding when you're going to upgrade. But if if that's not the case and you are going to be, trying to make the decision of when you should upgrade, there's a few things that I want you to know. So Deltek announced last week that the Costpoint version 7.1 series will be moving to sustaining support March 1st of 2022. So what does that mean when they say sustaining support? So it's no new software enhancements, hot fixes, service packs, or regulatory updates. So what that means is that this year, 2021, would be the last year that we would get year-end updates for 7.1, which means if you have payroll, like if you're running payroll through the system or you're wanting to do, say there's a change to 1099s or anything like that, you'll get that for this year. But for December 31st of 2022, you would not have those updates and things that you would need. So just keep that in mind when you're planning, like your timeline for going to 7.1 to 8. The other factors you want to take into account are resource availability. So, what all is going on with your resources and things like that internally. So if you have a small staff and, say a person's getting married and they're going to be diverted with that, and there's just a lot going on. I hate to say that, but there's just things, life happens. So that's kind of what I'm saying when I say resource availability. Other corporate initiatives. So this is, like if there's other things that are going on, your corporation's doing acquisitions, you're going to have to integrate that acquisition in, there's all these things that are going to be going on. You might want to just, again, as you're planning your timeline, take that into account also. Issue fixes in the new version. So if you are waiting for a fix, like say there's something, that you're having problems with in 7.1, and when you start looking at 8, you see something that completely is, you're like, I have to have that. We have to have that. This is, we must go. That might push your timeline forward also. And then the time and expense version upgrade. So that's another one that, you might want to upgrade if you're still on TNE9, you might want to upgrade from TNE9 to TNE10 first and then go to Costpoint 8, or you might want to do it at the same time. But again, it's a consideration that you want to take into account when you're planning your timeline for your 8 upgrade. And then, so I throw this out there, how can we help you? And the reason I put this out there is that, again, I've had calls and emails and things from people at various points in the process. And I just want to throw this out there. So we can help you identify those modules, that are affected by the upgrade. We can help you identify the risks. We can recommend an upgrade approach that fits your company's requirements. If you decide to test, we have, proven test plans and things to help you. We can assist you with questions and troubleshooting. So this one, actually, I have done a lot of for those that chose the rip the Band-Aid off approach and just, went, from 7.1 or 7.1 to 8. It's more just providing kind of the troubleshooting and just the reassurance after you go live that, you have somebody to ask questions to and stuff like that if you run into a problem. Configuration of new functionality. So if there's something new that you want to take advantage of or you have questions about or anything like that, we can also help you out with that. And then again, the post-upgrade support. So if you upgrade and you just need assistance afterwards, we can help you with that also. Any questions?
Thanks, Susan. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a few minutes now. If you have any questions for Susan about what you just saw or heard, or anything else about the Costpoint upgrade process, go ahead and use that Q&A tab within the Zoom window and enter your questions in there. And we'll take a few minutes now to answer those. Susan, there are a few questions that have come in. Let me read that first one off for you. The first one is, Costpoint version 7.1 series covers version 7.1.7 also. So I think they're asking if 7.1.7 is included in that 7.1 series.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. There's another question about in 7.1.1, is the lead data tracked on the activities screen?
Is the lead data tracked on the activities screen? So the activities, if I'm understanding correctly, the activities is a subtask on the opportunity screen where you can go in and you can say what you've been doing. Like you can say, I had a meeting with the client, or I had a meeting with the prospect on this date, etc. In Costpoint 8, the lead screen is a separate screen and it has its own set of activities that you can track. I hope that answers your question, but
Very good.
yeah, it's not the activity screen. So
Yeah, quite a few questions flowing in now, Susan. So glad we have a few minutes to do that. So the next question is, what type of testing for Costpoint version 8 do we recommend?
So again, this goes back to what I would say risk, like what your company views as the risks. If you are a company that needs to put things through the paces, what I will recommend is essentially functional testing of all of the core, of all kind of your, through your whole kind of process, string. So it's basically like an integrated testing that just goes through everything, like all the processes, all of your posting, essentially your whole cycle that you would go through in a month.
Okay, we actually have a few more questions. One here is, we're currently using time and expense version 9. Do we need to upgrade to time and expense 10? I'm assuming they made in relations to the Costpoint 8 upgrade.
Yes, the answer to that is yes. You do need to go to time and expense 10 if you are going to be on Costpoint 8.
Great. Another question here is, does time and expense have a better interface in Costpoint 8, or do you still need to initiate the interfaces back to the core?
If I'm understanding correctly, that question, I believe, is in regards to the import export between time and expense and Costpoint. And yes, in 8, you still have to do that.
Okay, another question. Is there any advantage or disadvantage of implementing Costpoint 8 versus Costpoint 8.1, which Deltek announced will be released in September of this year?
So what I would tell you is there is actually, like, usually there's a pre-release document. So if you go look for the pre-release document for 8.1, you would approach it in the same way that as you would what we were talking about when you're assessing whether you should go from 7.1 to 8, and see what functions are in 8.1 that would be beneficial to you.
Okay, another question. What versions of SQL Server are supported in Costpoint 8?
That I do not know off the top of my head. So I would have to follow up with whoever asked that question because I don't know that one off the top of my head right now.
Very good. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? We do have just a few more minutes remaining in our time here. So if you have any other questions, please go ahead and enter those in. We'll take just another few moments and see if those come in. Okay, so it looks like there's no further questions, Susan. So if you want to advance to that final slide, we can go ahead and wrap up. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time today. We appreciate you giving us a few minutes of your day to learn more about some considerations to keep in mind as you're planning your Costpoint 8 upgrade project. If you have any questions, you can certainly email Susan directly. Her email address is right there on the screen, or you can certainly contact us through our website, www.neosystemscorp.com. So again, thank you for your attendance, and please keep an eye out for the next event that we're having, which will be coming up in a month now, probably in about mid-April, and we'll be letting you know what that's about. Thank you very much.
Thank you.